Okay.
Share
And
my
if you wanna share the agenda. Would you like me to go ahead and jump into the land acknowledgement, Missy?
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
Well, I do want to acknowledge that the Dan Godwin Center here, our home at the Ark, and the land where most of us are this evening is the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. The Laktamish, the Lemhi Nation, and the Nooksack tribe have lived here and cared for these lands and waters since time immemorial. I am grateful for their continued stewardship and leadership in caring for one another in this wonderful place we live. Thank you. Shall we do
Moving on. Yes. It's teeny tiny on my phone.
Okay. I can call out the topic areas we're at if that helps.
I think I just need to get closer, so maybe I'll turn off my camera so you guys all don't have to see my look through my glass.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay, so-
introductions. I am Misty Bartel, president of the board.
I'm Ellie Posel, board member.
I'm Dale Whipple, I'm board member.
Beverly
John, I'm a board member.
I'm Melanie Hartley, board member.
I'm Francie Chalmers, board member, new board member.
Susan Jewell, board member, parent, treasurer, happy to be here. Happy Missy's.
And I'm Hillary, I'm ARC staff. Rhonda, ARC staff.
And I'll just add a quick note that I just had an email from Jason, who's not able to be here this evening. The North Sound Accountable Communities of Health are meeting down in Tulalip today and tomorrow. And I declined to go to those meetings, but Jason is there networking, and so I thanked him and asked him to keep advocating for children and youth. So he's not able to be with us tonight.
Knowing Jason, he will.
Yeah,
Jason's a big man.
for sure.
So the next section would be the taking a look at the agenda and see if there are deletions, additions, things that we want to move around. And I know that Ellie had sent a quick email with a
Yeah, just
change.
ask you to move the diversity training update and new board member training under nominating committee instead of board affairs committee.
Are there any other corrections, additions, things that people want to add or move around in any way? Okay, well, Missy, do you want to entertain a motion from the board to approve the agenda?
I would love to entertain a motion.
It's Margaret. I move that we accept the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
A second by Dale. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion passes unanimously. And that leaves us moving on to advocacy reports.
Ken isn't here, so do we have anyone else? Dale?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know this stuff. I have 6 more weeks left before I retire from Red Rob. That's my 33 years employee, dedicated worker and stuff. And then also in August, I plan to take a trip to Hawaii for a week.
Woohoo!
Good old Hawaii.
Ooh, great way to celebrate.
If, and also I just wanted to know they'll have more time to volunteer for the ARC after I retire to help support the ARC of Whatcom County, make it a happy place.
Oh, Dale, thank you. That's awesome.
That's exciting. That's something really great to look forward to. Okay, moving on to old business. We have the board portal and the board retreat. Did you guys want to tackle the board portal, see where we're at?
Yeah, so I know Rhonda had been doing, trying to work around technology glitches to use Teams as a board portal. And I do know that some emails did go out. It has worked for some, but not for everybody. So can you tell us a little more about what you've learned or seen, Rhonda, or what steps we can take now?
Yeah, I am still working on it. Sorry that it is taking so long. It seems like it worked for Beverly and Hillary, that they would be with our same arcwhatcom.org. So that's a little bit simpler. So I may try and send out a test to some of you. If you can let me know in the next week or so, if you get it and can open, I'll probably use this month's information to see if you can open it and look at it and receive it and then get some feedback so that we can do some trial runs that way. But I didn't want to do that without mentioning it to you guys first. So if everyone's okay with that, I will practice with you guys a bit in the upcoming week and we'll see how it works. And you guys can let me know what's working well. And one of the things that I'm not certain about is as I send it, I had to log into my Microsoft 365 account as I sent it to my personal email. So I don't know what happens if you don't have a Microsoft 365 account. Does everyone know if they have a Microsoft 365 account?
Some of us don't know what a Microsoft 355 account is.
Okay, so what I don't know is how it will open for you then. It is the platform, like one of the more recent platforms that does Teams, but also does like your Word documents and Excel documents and anything on that Microsoft platform. And so what I don't know is if I send it to you and you don't have that, I don't know how it will open or if it will open. So we're gonna need to play with that a little bit, I think. But if you guys can give me your feedback, I can keep like plugging away at that as I figure out how it's working for each of you. You guys game for some trial and error?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Great. Yeah, so that's the update.
Right, thank you, Rhonda. I know that
Thank
one of
you.
one of the things that we had talked about was that not everybody's technology is going to work that way, and it's not going to be accessible for everybody to do that, and that's okay. We're still going to end up emailing documents sometimes as well, or along with that. And additionally, we'll still end up mailing hard copies of some things too. So I know that how we access the information can be varied. And so I want to make sure that there's more than one option so everybody can get to the information that they need.
Yeah,
France?
I don't, the plus of it is it can be more secure because it's encrypted, but it will be a little bit trickier to access. So I think there's pros and cons to it. So it just depends on what the board really wants and where you guys are at with those two issues.
Could it possibly be that we look at it as one of a number of tools in our toolbox so that we have many methods of communication and not reliant on just one?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Beverly was saying is we'll have a couple of different ways of getting it out. So that people can access it in the way that's easiest for them. I think that's what you were saying, Beverly, is that right?
I'm sorry, I left the room for a minute because Sam is here.
Yay.
So I think you were saying that we're going to need multiple ways for people to access the information because we have different access needs. And so whatever whatever portal system we end up with still won't address some of the accessibility pieces. So we will still email as well, and sometimes snail mail hard copies.
Mhm.
Is that what the question was about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was my understanding,
Yeah.
is that you wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that different people could access it different ways.
Right, yeah, and Rhonda and I have been doing a lot of research into this, and we can purchase some very expensive board portal systems that can hold, you know, and we could do the encryption thing and that sort of thing. And build something like that and spend a lot of money on it. It still doesn't make it accessible or as easy when you're on your phone or whatever kind of data plan you have, or just how easy technology can be for you. And so part of why we haven't gone to make a purchase of something is knowing that one way of accessing the information will not answer the question for everybody too. And so rather than buying a system and programming it and setting it all up and having it still not work for everyone, it seemed like being able to use Microsoft Teams was a really good way to move forward. And I know that Missy and I have talked to them about how well it works, and then some of the difficulties of it as well. So we'll keep working at it.
Yes.
Right. And Sam is here. I'm wondering if we could all reintroduce ourselves.
Yeah.
That would be really nice to do. So hi, Sam. I'm glad you're here. I'm Beverly. I'm the executive director and I'm a parent. And
I'm Hillary, I'm the office manager. We talked online a little bit. Yeah.
I'm Missy Bartell. I'm president. Maybe Margaret.
I'm Melanie Hartley, board member.
Margaret and I had the great pleasure of meeting Sam, and I am just delighted to have her joining us.
Susan Jewell, board member.
Francie Chalmers, board member.
My name is Rhonda and I'm on staff with the ARC.
It's nice to meet you all. Yeah, thanks for
Glad to
being
see you
here.
Yeah. Cool. So we were just doing old business. Yeah.
Board retreat next.
Yeah, and board retreats kind of stirred up with the diversity training in a way, but the board retreat and the diversity training that we had planned, we know we were looking at December 2nd and January 13th, and then things got bumped along in that process with the trainer. So I've not made a connection yet again to see what time would work in terms of being able to schedule that and plan that. So, and we don't have to decide all that right now, but I also recognize that in January that I was not ready to help facilitate a retreat. Given the timeline that we'd been planning to have diversity training on the 13th. And so I had contacted Missy and then sent the word out as well to others that was no longer on our schedule. So I'd like to find a time and talk about a way that we could all be able to do a board retreat. And it would really be lovely to be in person, to be able to have some connections and conversations that weren't just business. And so that's my piece that I want to offer, that I and the rest of the staff want to help facilitate that for the board.
Is there something you need back from us? Because I think we're all, I think this is really a something our board needs. We just haven't had a chance to all be together in one place, and I would certainly like to see that happen. what are you, I mean, do we have a general idea of dates? Do you need something from us to let you know when we're available? Yes.
No, I haven't put anything together with dates or anything, so, and my month has been a little fractured. My mom passed away on the 10th. And so that has also really impacted my ability to stay on top of emails and other planning. So what I'd like to offer is that together Hillary and Rhonda and I can arrange to get out a doodle poll and get some dates from folks that they have availability. And as well, I can reach back out to Janice unless somebody from unless Margaret or Ellie were feeling connected with her, and to try to find out about another date that could work as well.
And Jason knows her really well too.
Oh, okay.
I'm still thinking about the board retreat. Should we as a board be talking about an agenda? Or is that something that is so standard? I mean,
I think if there were things that you wanted to have covered, maybe connecting with Beverly or myself. And then I kind of in my head was gonna just from my own experience in the past, kind of putting together. But I wasn't prepared.
yeah,
I wasn't prepared for it this month.
yeah, I'm I'm totally happy.
Yeah.
Missy, that if you've done these before, and you know, I'd certainly like to help if I can.
Yeah. Which will come up then during the board affairs part and our committees as we talk about that. And I think when we had talked about doing it previously, it was the consensus sounded like a half day, preferably a weekend is what I remember from everybody, and maybe more morning than afternoon. Does that still hold true for everybody? Well, I guess that's where the doodle poll will come in. So
This is Ellie, I need a little clarification.
Yeah.
So are we talking about two different things, a board retreat and diversity training? So that we want both in one day? Because if that's the case, I don't see how we can do that in a half day.
Right, we can't.
no, and I think we had decided previously that it would be two separate events, which is why we had
Okay.
booked out those 2 dates, and then both of them ended up falling through for that DEI training. And so so
So we're looking at 2 dates, one for a board retreat and one for the diversity training, is that right?
I think at this point we're looking at one date until we hear back from the facilitator, so that because we've gone and presented her dates, and so maybe if we flip that around and have her give us dates, then we can bring that to the board. Out of these dates, what works for everybody?
And my guess would be that, I mean, I think it was decided it would be a half day. I think that in trying to come up with what would work for the DEI, it was really the same question and I recall that it worked best for the majority of people to have it on a Saturday morning, a 9 to 12. Does anybody, am I right? I mean, I know that was true for the DEI, but my understanding was that it would be the same factors in terms of people's timing, that people work during the week. So
Yes.
that Saturday would be better.
So Margaret, you're absolutely right. Both times were considered both events were considered to be on a Saturday from 9 to 12. One being the DEI training with Janice and the other being the board retreat. And as for agenda for a board retreat, I think that absolutely everyone should have input into that. And my suggestion, and I haven't brought this to the president yet, but I'll just spring it on her now. My suggestion is that we hire a facilitator to assist with the board retreat so that we can have that structure and have somebody assisting in that way, because we all are really passionate about this. And I think it's great to have somebody who can guide us through that time together, who has expertise in facilitating board events like that. And so I'd be happy to look into some possibilities on that. And
I think that sounds good. Yeah,
I see Susan Jewell has raised her hand. I don't know if you can see that, Missy.
I cannot.
Okay, so Susan Jewell has raised her hand.
Susan Jewell.
Thank you. I agree that a facilitator is an excellent idea. I agree with what Margaret had said and about the timings. And I'm wondering if when the doodle poll goes out, if there can be like a blank or an open question that says agenda suggestions, and that would be a way for everybody to give input into what they would like for the agenda. I don't know how doodle things work, if they're closed questions, but just an idea. Thank you.
Yes,
Great idea.
yes, Susan, after the calendar section where you can check off if you're available or not, down lower on the screen is an area for comments. And I can do a screenshot and share that as well to be able to show folks how they could give that kind of information. And then we can certainly send out an agenda ideas before the event, so that everybody can take a look at that too.
Great. All
All
sounds
right.
good to me. Do you need
Okay. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh, I just wondered if you need, somebody to make a motion. Or if we just agreed and that'll be the plan.
I think right now we don't, I mean, it's been in our docket. I think it's more update than
Yeah.
make it a motion. So unless the motion be to search for a facilitator.
I make a motion that we have a facilitator at the board retreat.
I second. Margaret.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
I,
opposed? All right,
I'm
passes
sorry,
unanimously.
that was Susan who made the motion. Forgot to say
Yep.
my name.
Okay. So then we can move on then to executive director report. Look at that. I can read all that tiny writing.
Okay. Well, I had included in your packet a summary of, or you're probably showing it, aren't you? A summary of ARC Whatcom activities for 2023. And I know it's a lot of numbers and it might not mean a lot in looking at it in some ways. So I'm gonna highlight a few areas. We have met all of our funding requirements through United Way and through the Whatcom County Health Department in terms of the support meetings that we've held. And we're well beyond the some of the expectations, like an example of the parent peer matches. We have a minimum of 15 a year that we're supposed to do, and we're really not in charge of how many people might call for one, but we're absolutely responsible for trying to do a parent match and create a parent match when a family calls us looking for a helping parent connection. And we had 28 of those this year. So just remarkable connections for a parent with a new diagnosis or with a new baby to be able to contact the ARC and immediately be connected within 48 hours to another parent who can guide them and support them and just connect with them and make, release their sense of isolation and stress And it's just a huge comfort as well, and really builds on family strengths. We have increased certainly all the number of families that are being supported through our Latino family support and Hispanic outreach. So Marta and Alina, I know I've spoken about before the work that they do. We had, I'm trying to remember the number because it's built into here, but we had, I think, 130 families that received Toys for Tots. So
More kids, but
yeah, there's
Families.
130 families. And so one of these pieces, and that's not just Spanish speaking families, that's also English speaking families or other languages. But families who have a child with special needs aren't necessarily looking for typical gifts that you would get for a 3-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 17-year-old. And because children's abilities can be very different and quite varied. So the parent staff took all this information that came from families about the age of their kids, the needs of their kids, what some of their sensory sensitivities may be, any, mobility concerns or fine motor skills, and their interests. And we had a huge amount of toys here in the building, and then sorted those out and separated things and created a gift package for each family, for each of those 130 families. And it's absolutely wonderful that Toys for Tots is supported in the community, and that the Marines and other folks are supporting that and helping that. We're able to do this unique work of knowing the families and understanding their needs to be able to help them in the midst of this too. So it's such a boost to who you are, to know that your child matters, to know that other people get this, and even folks who maybe don't celebrate Christmas still wanted to be a part of that and to be connected. So that was a lot of work in December. It happened at the same time as we had several other events that were happening. So it was quite a busy month for us. And it's been a relief to have a little quiet time here in January.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And Susan, Jewel, I see your hand raised. Oh, and Francie too. Did you have a question, Francie?
I do have a question. And because this is the first time I've seen this chart, but I'm trying to understand the last 4 lines of, looks like there's 2 sections, and the
Yes.
last 4 lines are repeated with different numbers. And can you just really quickly explain to me what the top section looks like? Presentations and programs.
Okay, yes.
But,
Oh yeah, sure.
why are those
I'll walk-
lines there twice?
Yeah, I can walk you through that a little bit more. So that top section is, yes, it's kind of the big picture of how many newsletters did we send out each month, or how many newsletters did we design and publish. And then much lower down on the list, you can see where we have the number of people we actually snail mail to is 63, but we have over 2,000 people on our electronic email list. So that newsletter goes to over 2,000 people. So an example would be, we had a self-advocacy support meeting. And so it says self-advocacy support group, and we have the number 1 up higher in the calendar, in the chart. And then as you scroll down, you'll see where it says self-advocacy support group, which is the same phrase, but what does that mean? It means how many people came to that group. So it might have been 7 or 11 or 8 people. So this is each of our program areas of support and information and education. So that the contracting and the statement of work that we have to do is getting information out to families, and that's through newsletters and emails, which have gone to, as we see, more than 2,000 people. It means having family caregiver trainings, opportunities to learn more about applying for Social Security or guardianship, how to even do your DDA, the Developmental Disability Administration application. So we might say that we had one family caregiver training, and that's higher up in the list. And then when you look down lower, we can put that we had 18 people at that event. So the numbers below are the amount of people, parents, educators, siblings, community members who participated in particular
Thank you.
events or opportunities. Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking. Because yeah, you haven't been walked through that. And this, again, the numbers are in some ways helpful and descriptive of the services, but being able to know about what that helping parent match means, or what it means to get that newsletter in your inbox or actually snail mailed to you, so that you can, in the midst of your busy family life, take a look at the calendar and say, oh, there's a meetup at a park, and I'm going to go and hang out with other families and be able to connect around particular issues. So Susan, Jewel, you had your hand raised too?
Yes, thank you, Beverly. That's a really good explanation, and I appreciate hearing that again. I'm wondering if, the top section says number of units, presentations, comma, something. And then I'm wondering if the blue line that separates those two sections could have a heading that says number of people impacted or something like that, to kind of clarify that, unless this is something that you develop for somebody else and they wouldn't want to know that particularly, but that's just a thought. But what I really wanted to mention was, we were talking earlier about DEI, and as I understand it, DEI is an acronym for diversity, something and inclusion.
Equity.
Equity. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. And I am wondering, are the disability awareness presentations a form of the ARC delivering diversity, equity, and inclusive information to the community?
That's correct. The disability awareness presentations and events, as well as the presentations and meetings with school districts, are all events where we talk about choice and self-determination. We talk about disability, not just awareness, but acceptance and understanding about that, and really promote inclusion and belongings for whether it's a 3-year-old or a 53-year-old with a disability, that people belong in the community. So it absolutely is about that.
So that being said, wouldn't it raise the awareness for our membership and for the board if that was also in parentheses, like after that particular support service, that is a DEI activity? Just because we have an agreement with the National ARC about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's a primary focus of this local agency in this last year. And I think that would just market it and raise the awareness of it, that we could signify which of these events do promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And also it would help our funders better understand how clued in and how tied in we are to making sure that we educate the community in this manner. Just an idea, I'm throwing it out there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, what was that, Margaret?
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, it's okay.
I was saying that it was an excellent idea, and I second that idea.
Great. So I will use these numbers along with some other information we have of feedback and surveys and evaluations from families to help build our annual report that we prepare for the membership meeting in May. And it's also part of what I send into United Way at this point. I give this report to the county every month. With updates on it, so. And then the other piece that was on the agenda was just, facilities and letting folks know some things about that. We had, I'd been having, handyman do some work at the Alderwood building, and unfortunately, he got another job. And couldn't complete some of that work, so we found another gentleman who, he and his employee, came to the Alderwood building and have completed covering all of the windows and painted those and helped to secure that building more. So that was quite a relief to be able to get a little bit more work done at the Alderwood building. And then helped install our new monitor that we're using tonight for our meeting here. Which we purchased out of some technology funds. So trying to help our meetings and community events be, hybrid and as accessible as they can be, whether folks come here in person or are able to join online. There is no news from the Redwood building, the Building Performance Center and Opportunity Council about any timing around their desired heat update that had got postponed, and at this point there's nothing on the calendar about that, but it is something that I will want to keep in mind when we do work on budgeting. I'm thinking about holding some funds available for that.
So are you saying that the tenant is the one who pushed it out?
Yeah, so there were some funding changes with the Opportunity Council, and I don't know all the details to that, but they pushed it out. So they've continued to do part of our lease with them, because the heating system is older. They have an inspection of that every year, and so they are maintaining all their requirements of the lease, and they're trying to keep themselves warm.
I think they were having to do some additional fundraising.
Okay. So are there any questions about any of that?
No, thank you so much.
Okay.
It's also that president's report.
Yeah.
And then we have the committee and the member update stuff. So what this is according to, is it our current bylaws or the wax? Now I'm trying to remember. My brain is pretty fried with technology.
I think it's according to both things, Missy. Our current bylaws state that the committee membership ends at the end of the calendar year. And we had extended people's terms in a way on those committee work through January, just to be able to complete some work together. So that's part of it, is that the committee membership is supposed to end so that it can change or be refreshed. And so there can be some mixing of the board into the committees. The other piece that is the new requirements, the new code of Washington, changes the name of some of the committees so that what we used to call standing committees, that included board affairs, programs and services. And I'm sorry, I can't remember them all right now. I'm not going to look at it because it doesn't matter. The standing committees become what are called committees of the board. And there's requirements statewide about those, that there be 3 board members at a minimum on the committees of the board. There are also changes that what we've called advisory committees or ad hoc committees before become advisory committees. And there's a requirement with those, that there be at least one board member on a committee. For instance, the Down Syndrome Outreach Committee would move from being, would move into that category of, not committee of the board, but advisory committee,
Right.
thank you. So what we're needing is the committees of the board. We talked a little bit about programs and services last month. But we need people to be able to volunteer or be appointed to the committees of the board so that we can do some of the work that we need to do. So programs and services would be looking at those outcomes, those numbers from last year, as well as evaluations and surveys, and then looking at budgeting for the year. And then nominating committee was something that we wanted to make a year-long, not an ad hoc committee, but a year-long committee as a committee of the board to be able to do their work, as another example.
Yes.
Margaret? When I actually read through the email, the attachment before I found out that you didn't want to send it out, but in looking at it, one of the things about the wording of the committees of the board was that, to me, it sounded like, well, there were two things. It sounded as though those committee members were appointed by the president, and what we did was, the way we formed those committees at the beginning of the year was, these were the committees who was interested in doing what. So basically it wasn't being appointed, it was people bringing forth their interest in joining. And I guess I'd like to understand if that's, I mean, to me, that makes sense. I mean, because people would know what committee work they're interested in. The other thing was, it sounded as though only board members could be on the committees of the board. And that's exactly not true in terms of what I had understood, and I believe was in the bylaws previously, that yes, there were board members on it, but other volunteers could be on that. And that's important to me, because in talking with the not yet board members whose position on the board is going to be voted on at the membership meeting, one of the things they are invited to do, and I very much hope is still true, is that they can participate on committees and bring they or other people who are interested in a committee can be on the committee. So it's not I don't understand those as being restricted to board members. And I guess those two things I'd like clarification on.
Perfect, that's great, thank you. So the first issue has to do with how people are on a committee, whether they're appointed or they volunteer. Our current bylaws states that the president appoints people. And what has happened historically is that people volunteer. And then if we don't have enough volunteers, the president can appoint people. So I think that by saying that it's an appointment to a committee, it still leaves room to express your preferences and say, I really want to be on this committee and not on that one. And I don't think Missy or any other president would say, no, we're not going to do that necessarily. If you have an interest in a committee, I think that that's really valid outside of the bylaws. And so, yes, our current bylaws say that the president appoints people to the committee, but you can absolutely volunteer. Is that clear?
Okay, then the other question is,
Yeah, your other question had to do with the new RCW and committees of the board that previously were standing committees. And I'm gonna have to read a little bit more in the law about that to see. I believe that it says that, I mean, I know it says there has to be a minimum number of board members. I don't know that it says that we can't allow other people to attend meetings or be a part of those meetings. I don't think there's a restriction of in that way. But the law is trying to make sure that the governing officers of the board are involved in standing or committees of the board and advisory boards. So for example, programs and services should be filled with board members. But the RCW doesn't say that other people can't attend those meetings but I don't know that they would, so I need to read deeper into it to see if like, let's say we say, yeah, Sam, we'd love you on programs and services. Does Sam get a vote on that committee? Or not? Probably not because she's not a board member, but she can be on the committee. That's, so I need to look into that a little bit more. And I see Susan has her hand raised.
Thank you, Beverly. These are really good questions that Margaret brought up that we've been wrestling with. We've probably been 2 months now in weekly meetings reviewing the bylaws and the RCWs about how our existing committees and how our future committees have to look so that we are in compliance. And so that being said, the appointment only comes about to a committee, as Beverly said, if there's a dearth of people, nobody's wanting to be on a committee, for instance, then yes, the president appoints. But in addition to that, when someone volunteers, then in our minutes, the president is appointing that person who has volunteered so that there is a legal chain of documentation of who comprises that committee, which board members are actually on there. And so in the current bylaws, we moved 2 committees out of standing committee, which were the fundraising and marketing, and we put them into the advisory committee arena. And then we moved 1 advisory committee, which was the nominating committee. We kind of elevated it up into a committee of the board. That does not mean that public community members cannot attend those committee meetings. It just means that the votes can only be by board members in committees of the board. I think Karen Funston, our attorney, was pretty clear about that when she was pointing to the RCW in one of our drafts that we had sent to her of the bylaws. That being said, so we have 4 under the current draft of the bylaws. We have 4 committees of the board, which are executive, programs and services, board affairs, and nominating. And then the proposal for advisory committees are fundraising, marketing, bylaws, Down syndrome outreach, and executive director search committee. So there's lots of opportunities for people to volunteer, whether they're a board member or a community member. We just have to keep in mind that the special or ad hoc committees, which are now known as advisory committees, have to have at least 1 board member on there. So that's just my understanding from the work we've been doing and from what Karen Funston, the attorney, has advised us. And I hope that helps clarify things, that there's no reason to oppress volunteerism here. This is about acknowledging by appointment that a volunteer has said they want to be on a committee.
Okay.
So, keeping all that in mind, I think we had the committee write up and member sorry, my brain, my battery just flashed that I only have 10% left on my phone. So if I get disconnected very suddenly, I apologize and please ask somebody else to close the meeting. I love technology. I love technology.
What,
Um,
Missy, would you like me to name the 4 committees again that are committees of the board?
Yes.
Okay, so the 4 committees of the board, the first one is the executive committee. That committee is made up of the officers of the board who are the president, co-vice presidents, secretary, and treasurer. So that's kind of an automatic thing for folks who've been willing to be nominated and to serve as officers. So currently the executive committee really doesn't end their roles unless they're getting nominated into a different one. And that would be Missy and Susan and Jason, who are on those committees. The next committee was the Programs and Services Committee that looks at the programs and outcomes and the activities of the ARC and how those things are working and then helps to develop a budget. Francie and Missy and Susan had all volunteered to be a part of that committee earlier this month. And then because of other things like cold weather and snow and frozen pipes, we have not had that meeting. So that's the second committee. The nominating committee is moving from a standing committee to a committee of the board, and that is the committee that helps to recruit and continue that involvement with board members. Always looking for how our board is doing. And then the last one is the board affairs, which has looked at board performance, also looked at evaluation of the executive director, talked about training for the board, those sorts of board issues. So those are the 4 boards. So really there's only 3 to volunteer for.
And
So,
so, go on.
no, you,
Oh, I was gonna say, just in lieu of time and my battery power, is there anybody, does any of those ring very strongly to somebody that like, yeah, I want to shift, I want to go on to this one? Do you want to stay on the ones you're on? So,
Well, I'll say that I'm happy to stay on the nominating committee with Margaret and Jason. And also stay on the board affairs committee with Missy and whoever else would like to join us.
and I'm happy staying on the nominating committee. Can't speak for Jason, but I certainly hope that he will too.
This is Susan. I'm willing to stay on the Programs and Services Committee. And even though it's not a committee of the board, it's an advisory committee, I'm willing to stay on the bylaw committee. And I'm hoping that someone will also volunteer to be on the Down Syndrome Outreach Committee. Thank you.
when does Down Syndrome Committee meet?
We typically meet about once a month, but and we're a very fun committee, just for the record. The last meeting, we went out to dinner.
That's my kind of committee.
We primarily have talked through like planning for Spring Fling and Buddy Fest. So we sometimes meet more often as we're getting closer to those events, and less often after. So like after Buddy Fest, we had a couple of months off. We do need to get together again, both with a board member and to be planning dates for Spring Fling and Buddy Fest so that we can get those reservations made and get that information out. But I'm going to say roughly once a month.
And I'm just wondering, like, business during the day or evening, and it's sounding like evenings.
It's evenings, yeah. And
So-
right now, honestly, it's mostly not parents. parents come, but a lot of our planning has been done by either aunts or uncles or grandparents of kiddos with Down syndrome. So yeah, it's a fun group. And it's primarily focused on the logistics of some of the events that we hold.
Well, if
I
nobody
just-
else is interested, I would love to hang out with you guys.
Yay!
And
We would love to have you hang out. You're on a lot of committees though.
Yeah.
But your committee sounds like the most fun.
Woohoo, my sales pitch worked.
All right.
Yeah, are you able to get like a little charging cable or anything, Missy?
No, because it's in my car. And my car
Oh.
is in the shop down at Blade Chevy in Mount Vernon.
Oh,
So I'm kind of having just one of those weeks. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay, well, I thank you. I thank
and
you.
if other people are kind of sitting on this and if something strikes you, feel free to reach out to Beverly or myself.
Because it seems like the Board Affairs Committee definitely needs, according to RCW, one more person.
Yes.
Yeah. So somebody could think about.
Yes.
Maybe we could talk Jason into it.
Whoever's not here gets added into the open
There we
spot.
go. Isn't that the rule?
I'm joking. Yeah.
He's on the.
Mhm.
Realistically, someone else.
And so
Well,
do we need, sorry.
I was just gonna say, one of the reasons that I come to this too is thinking about, each of you came on, under different circumstances and have taken this role on for some time, and I want you to feel like you have permission to change committees, to feel like if there's a way to refresh in any way, to move around to a different committee, to learn something else, or to be involved in a different way. I want you to not feel like you're stuck in a particular role or a particular area. Part of what having a nominating committee that's continually bringing new people in too is that our relationships can keep growing and learning and being supported by the different perspectives that all of us have. So that's something I want to encourage all of you to know, that I hope you don't feel like you're trapped.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, so did you want to move on then to the looking at our board minutes?
Well, the one thing I was going to ask though is that for our compliance, do we need to make a motion and accept the current appointments or extend the grandfathering in through our February? It's giving us time to reach out to the members who aren't, or the directors that aren't here. And
Oh,
I
heck, why
think-
don't you just appoint everybody to what they want to do?
I think we could appoint,
Interested.
I think we could appoint everyone who from tonight who has expressed their interest and preference. And that part can be official. And that then in terms of building out the committees, then we can work on contacting those other folks about that.
okay.
So I have in my notes, for the committees of the board, the executive committee is pretty obvious. The programs and services was Susan Jewell, Missy Bartell, and Francie Chalmers. The nominating committee is Ellie, Margaret, and Jason. Board Affairs is Ellie and Missy. And then volunteering for advisory was on the bylaws is Susan Jewell, and the DSO advisory is Missy.
That's what I have too.
All right. Do we have a motion for all that? Dale.
I second it.
All right. So Dale, you gotta do the first, you've gotta make the motion.
I second it.
Can I make the motion then? I'll make the motion and Dale seconded.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
And by the way, Missy, I have a letter for you that I'm gonna have Hillary put in your box. And it does about my
Okay.
upcoming retirement and my Hawaii trip.
I'm so excited for you, Dale. You're making me jealous, especially
I'm
after the
looking
week
forward
I've
to
had
it.
so far.
We're looking forward to my retirement going to Hawaii. The
Woohoo.
13 goals I have.
All right. So containing our excitement, as much as I regret it, moving on to board minutes. If you guys had time to read those. If we can get a motion to accept the December minutes, November minutes as presented.
So moved.
I second, Margaret, I second.
All right. Was there any corrections, anything noted, or everything looks good? I thought it looked good. No discussion? You take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I realized I wasn't saying abstaining. Okay. Passes unanimously. And then we have our executive committee meeting from December. And we can get
I think Francie has something to say, but she's
oh,
muted.
sorry.
You're muted though, Francie.
Thank you. I just have a point of clarification, and this is silly and immaterial, but it makes me seem too old to say that I've been a pediatrician for 50 years. It's actually only 40.
Okay, I'll make a change there.
That's great. No, I think that's really important. How we identify is just fine. Absolutely, Francie. Yeah. You've been human for at least 50 years.
All right, good news. I did find a charging cord.
Yay.
Okay.
I think we just need a motion to approve.
Okay.
those
I thought I
minutes.
asked for that, sorry.
Dale's making the motion.
Dale makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll
To
second.
approve with that clarification, right?
As presented with correction, yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay. So next, we're moving on to executive committee minutes from January.
So the executive committee met on Wednesday, the 10th of January.
Mhm.
And so those minutes are in front of you as well. And the piece about executive committee, again, is that the executive committee is able to make any decisions that may be needed, between board meetings, and that then this board is able to look at any action that was taken and act upon that if need be. A lot of the work has been setting up the agenda and thinking about planning for the rest of the year.
Okay. And if There are no questions or corrections. Can take a motion for approving the January Executive Committee meeting minutes.
It's Margaret. I propose we accept the executive committee meeting minutes.
I'll second.
it.
All right,
Francie and Dale both second.
Nice.
a co-second. I like it.
Aye.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
All right, one more. Minutes from our bylaw committee meeting.
So I actually didn't order the minutes all in the right places. The executive committee is a committee report that we've often accepted right after we do the minutes from the board meeting. We have room under committee reports to talk about the bylaws.
Okay.
And so I actually put the bylaws stuff in the wrong place. So we would actually move to treasurer's report and look at the finances now. If we're sticking with the agenda that we did approve. And we'll do the bylaws as a
After?
committee report after.
Yeah.
the
Okay.
treasurer. And I know that some people have schedule wise, have some other things in their lives as well. So I think it may be useful to do the treasurer's report.
Because we have a couple to go through.
Yeah. So you got the November treasurer's information, financial statements as well as the December ones. Because this board did not meet at the end of December, that's why we have the November financials that are in front of you. And so I'd love to hand it off to Susan Jewell.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything unremarkable about the November financials that we won't also be able to see as we move forward to the December. We will consider that the November financials are not draft, that they will stand as they're written here. So if you do have any questions, please be sure to ask. What we're trying to do is give you on the profit and loss a picture of money that has come into the agency under income, and then money that has been spent under expense. And so if we could scroll up just a little bit, because I can't seem to see the bottom line there. We can see that for the month of November, we'll go a big, we didn't lose any money, so that's always a good thing for that month. And that, of course, when we look at the full 11 months, that we also are in a good position. And so if nobody has any questions about November, or if they do have questions, please jump right in. But otherwise, we can keep scrolling ahead. The balance sheet is the document that tells us what we own, how much cash we have, what our properties are, what our equipment is. And that's all under the asset section. And then the bottom section that talks about liabilities and equity, that's what we owe on what we own. And it also gives us a history of how much of our earnings we've retained and how much of our income we've retained for this year. And one of the nice things about our agency is that we try to keep the top half of the sheet looking really strong, and we try to keep the bottom half of the sheet looking small for liabilities. And so that continues to hold true here. Are there any questions about the November profit and loss or the November balance sheet?
No questions.
I can entertain a motion to accept the November financial statements, please.
I so moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? This passes unanimously.
As we go into December, for money coming in for the month and for the full year, and money being spent for the month and for the full year. What I want for you all to do is just briefly close your eyes and imagine written right across this page the word draft in real big letters. And the reason that we call this financial statement a draft is because we are still working on these numbers in conjunction with our certified public accountant. So they will look at these numbers in depth with us, but these are the numbers that we can use in programs and services, for instance, to start developing a budget for the 2024 year. But for now, as a board, we know that there will be an adjustment to these numbers, maybe one or two, maybe more, from the CPA. The most common adjustment we see is a journal entry for something called depreciation, which just reflects how the IRS has us look at the value of our property as it gets older and our equipment. So that is something that affects our bottom line, and we don't have that number yet. We let the CPA figure that out for us and tell us what we need to put there. But as we scroll down on the money coming in and the money going out for this month of December and for the full year, if we could slide it to the left just a little because my phone won't let me see the year to date.
I don't think I can do that, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, if I go by memory, the bottom of the year to date for December, that number is around $32,000 for the year. And like I said, that will be reduced by any journal entries from the CPA. But it puts us in a good position to know that our funding is in a good place for continuing to deliver mission-based services for the year. And then as we scroll further along into the balance sheet, the one number on here that I want to tell you about, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm looking now at my hard copy because I can't see it on the screen. The one number I wanted to mention in here is the one that says accounts receivable, which is 75,193. That's a number that's significantly higher than what it normally is. But many of you may recall we went 3 weeks in late October where the computer servers were completely down at the ARC, which delayed billing. And when you have delayed billing, then you have delayed receipt of your grant contracts. So half of that amount has since been come in early January. So we're back in the good position that we were in, and we shouldn't have any worries about anything in accounts receivable being uncollectible. It's one of the things that the businesses always say, well, is that a solid number? Are we ever going to get that money? Yes, these are county government and local funders who will be sourcing our work, and that's what's reflected there. So for the year, we had a solid number, as we said, of 32,767 for net income. And we will see some depreciation on our assets. But at this time, everything is in good shape. Some of the work that Beverly and Hillary and I were doing in early January in anticipation of a Programs and Services Committee meeting was taking all of the December numbers and the year-to-date numbers and breaking them out through the QuickBooks program, looking at each program and saying, okay, when we get together as a committee, then we'll need to see of all the money coming in and all the money going out, which program is fully funded, which program needs some support from our unrestricted income that we receive from rental income. So those are be a bigger, as Jason calls it, a deeper dive into those numbers as we get into the Programs and Services Committee meetings for budget. But in the interim, we can pretty much count on these as looking pretty good for the year as draft. Remember our imaginary draft written across these pages. But I would still like to entertain a motion to accept them after you've had a chance to ask any questions.
It's Margaret. I move that we accept the draft.
I second it.
Dale seconds. All in favor to accept the financials as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
And Madam President, can I add a piece too?
Yes?
I just wanted to add, I know that we had shared this with the treasurer too. There are some new staff in the finance department with the county. And as I was meeting with somebody yesterday, I was given more information that there are some contracts that have not been paid for some time. Because folks are working out their statement of work and trying to put all the right things in the right places. So the fact that we've had a bit of a delay in payment is not a huge problem. Some folks have had even many month-long delays in payments. So we have a reimbursement contract from the county that basically looks at the hours and work that the staff have done for the month that we report on, and then reimburses for some of those hours. And so that contract is always gonna come up with some dollars that are in accounts receivable. And I feel pretty confident about our relationship with finance and how our contract reads, that we won't end up in any sort of misunderstandings or holdups.
Thank
That's
you.
great information. Thank you, Beverly.
Okay, so there are some other committee reports that did get included in your packet of ones that that we did receive. And so two of those are from the bylaw committee about our meeting on the 17th and then on the 23rd. And I know that Rhonda and Hillary and I are also there with Susan Larson and Ken Larson and Susan Jewell, and continuing to look at all the input that has been provided from review by these board members, as well as by Karen Funston, that attorney who did the review. And part of the painstaking work in the last 2 weeks has been working on those areas where standing committees changed to committees of the board, and working to make sure that our revised bylaws, if they're accepted by the board and then by the membership, that they meet the new law for the state of Washington. So I don't know if anyone has any questions from around the bylaw committee minutes or information. We can do our best to answer those.
I might mention that all of the meetings of the bylaw committee are recorded. We just don't have written copies of the minutes from the last 2 years for you, but it's something that we discussed, that we might be able to take some of our recordings and say, for instance, on June 16th of 2022, at our very first meeting of the bylaw committee, we began by, just to have brief summaries of each of those meetings, because for a great part of this 18 months, we've met weekly, but we did have some COVID related things that caused us to have about 6 months with no meetings. But it's been consistent, and we appreciate all the input from the board from having reviewed one of our first drafts. And of course, then we got more review from the attorney from those changes. And so now we've got the Washington law that we're really doing a deep look at to make sure that everything is in place. So we're hopeful that we are going to wrap this up in not too very long, and plenty of time for the board to be able to look at it in depth, and then have it for the membership to be able to look at in depth at the May annual membership meeting.
Well, I think that might do it for bylaw committee, and we could move on to board affairs committee. I just do want to announce for those of you if you can't see very well, Ellie had to leave. She had another event, and I'm not sure, Melanie, how long you're able to stay at this point. We still have a quorum, but I want to check in.
Well, I should wrap it up in about 5 minutes, but if you're
Okay.
without a quorum, I can try and stay a little bit longer.
I think we're okay. I think we're almost done with business. And I just thought I'd take a moment to check in as well, because Ellie is gone, it leaves the bulk of the board affairs committee on Margaret's shoulders.
No, it's
So,
would be mine.
Oh, and yours too. Okay.
And
Thank
I'll
you.
just
Thanks
mention, and this is Susan, I'll just mention real quickly, I got someone to fill in for me from 6:45 to 7:30, but I am going to have to leave in like 2 minutes as well.
Okay.
And so
Good to-
board affairs, we're working on meeting with Beverly to review her all the details of the survey that we did, and can work from there. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
Thank you. Susan Jewell has her hand raised.
Yes, I just have one request for the Board Affairs Committee. Part of the recommendations that Board Affairs made to the full board some time ago in terms of the ED, Executive Director Evaluation, was that there's a tie-in between the outcomes of the evaluation and the Executive Director's compensation. And so for us, as we go into budget development for 2024, it would be just really, really helpful if the Programs and Services Committee had the input from the Board Affairs Committee as to where that evaluation stands so that we can take that into consideration as we look at Executive Director compensation in the budget. Thank
Right.
you.
And since I'm on both committees, it'll make it a lot easier. But yeah, it will be done before the programs and committee meets for the budget.
Thank you.
And then we have nominating committee.
We do have one prospective board member that I think those of us who are involved feel really good about, but I don't feel like, other than saying that, bringing it up at this point, I don't like to bring up a name before we're actually in the process, but everybody will be happy about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
And
there's been no meeting of the programs and services. I guess I'll just say that's because I left the office for a while.
and then there was snow, and then there was
Those no, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
okay. And I'm not sure what's next.
Next would be new business, if there are any new additions to the agenda. And then would be any announcements or fun for the good of the order, and then adjournment. So any new additions to our agenda?
Oh. Looks like we
just
lost
Su-
Susan.
Okay, Susan left. So we have Margaret, Francie, Missy, Melanie, Dale. We still have 5.
And Rhonda too, don't
Where
forget.
she's staff.
Mm.
Yeah. You can't count on us.
We count on you all the time.
It doesn't sound like there's any additions to the agenda.
All right.
How about any announcements? I know that, I've heard some people have gone down to Olympia for advocacy days. Sam, is that something you did?
We're going to.
Oh, you're going to, okay. I know that, one person on our staff, Terry Hansen, went down to Olympia last week. in the midst of all the weather and,
Oh.
just feels invigorated about advocacy efforts with our state legislature. So we may have more news as the legislative session goes on that we can share, but I think it's for the good of the order and for fun, it's nice to know that there are legislators who are paying attention to issues around special education and issues around housing is a huge thing, and services for people with developmental disabilities of all ages. So I'm seeing positive things come out of that, so I want to share that.
Wonderful.
Right.
So I'd like to share that I heard a rumor that Dale Whipple is retiring and going to Hawaii.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We're so
I
happy
have
for
to
you,
talk
Dave.
about it again, Dale. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
Which island are you going to?
Honolulu.
Nice. Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Okay, oh, fun. Are you gonna learn how to do the hula?
Yeah.
That will be your committee report next time, I think, or I guess in September.
Yeah, inclusion and Hawaiian culture, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. All right.
All right. And so then is the next then would be adjournment?
That's
think
what it looks
so.
like, yeah.
All right. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I turn.
Dale makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Margaret seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Good. I mean, all right. Meeting is adjourned at 7:34 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks,
Wonderful.
everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take
Have a good
care.
evening.
Yeah, all right.
Great.
Thank you, Francie. Great questions. Oh, there she goes.
All right.
Missy.
So now I'm
Hi,
signing.
Missy.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with me.
Bye.
I apologize, and I'll see you.
You're
when I see you
amazing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See ya.
All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.